Welcome to this month's Bytesize. I'm Ben, your host, and I'll be joined by Giles Tung, VP of Marketing, where we're going to be looking into our latest research, Subscriptions Assembled. Welcome, Giles. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ben. All good here. Thank you very much. Enjoyed the musical intro. Feeling pumped up now.
I love it. I love it. I love playing that video, especially in these live environments, in case no one's seen it before, right? It's a great chance to show it. So I want to just start off with kind of why we do research here at Bango.
Yeah, of course. So for those who don't know, Bango, we have a product digital vending machine. You just saw an intro to it there. We're helping subscription bundling. We're enabling bundling around the world. We work with content providers and anybody who wants to sell or bundle content. And with these studies, we're digging into subscriber behavior, which will help all parties understand the environment in which we're operating in. After all, it's all for subscribers.
Right, let's dig into it then. Subscriptions Assemble.
So this is our latest survey, Subscriptions Assemble. 5,000 US subscribers were studied, and we just released this a couple of weeks ago. So we're delighted here to dig into that report and actually go a little bit beyond the report. There's some data today that we'll be showing for the first time ever. So thank you everyone for joining us today.
And if anyone has not seen this report yet, there's a QR code that should be right above my head. We're live streaming, so I don't know which side it'll be on. You can scan that and you'll be able to download the report and get the copy of it. We'll cover a lot of the data here, but there's even more data within this that we haven't addressed in here. So do scan that and download it if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah, and just a quick plug as well. We wanted to say thanks to Evan Shapiro and Marin Ranchet for having us on their podcast a couple of weeks ago. The Media Odyssey, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's covering all manners of interesting topics around this area. Anil, our co-founder and CMO, was on the podcast, and do check it out. YouTube's probably best, but it's on all the usual places, and they're talking about all things bundling and super bundling.
QR code again for watching the podcast, guys. If you want to scan that and get access to that video, that'll go straight to the YouTube link as well for that one. I think we should dig into the data. What do you think?
Let's do it. Take it away, Ben.
Yeah, so the subscription economy is booming, and that's no surprise to anyone here, right? It is growing exponentially. Juniper Data recently updated their figure of hitting $1 trillion by 2028. So 1 billion is not that much. But what you can see here as well on the right-hand side is all these little news clippings of major content providers in the space, all talking around subscriptions. It is the way that things are going at the moment, and it will continue that way. The subscriptionization of products is here, and it's here to stay. So it's a really interesting space. Giles, you're going to talk a little bit more on the kind of indirect channel and explain that to the audience, aren't you?
Yeah, I thought I'd use this bit of data here to help explain what we mean by the indirect channel. So if once we went direct to consumer, that would mean we're going to say netflix.com to subscribe to Netflix. What we're seeing now is a massive growth in indirect channels and bundling. So this is where you've gone somewhere other than say netflix.com to subscribe. This data here from Antenna is absolutely fascinating. On the left-hand side, we have what they refer to as speciality SVOD, and don't think of that as sort of small and niche. They mean speciality, so it includes, say, Sony's Crunchyroll, the anime channel, which has something like 14 million subscribers worldwide. And what they're saying in this data is that 91% of their subscribers are now acquired through indirect channels, through not direct channels. And on the right-hand side, some data which is catching some headlines at the moment, which is Antenna again saying that 25% of the new signups that Apple TV achieved were done through Amazon channels. So really interesting dynamics playing out here in the indirect channel.
And we've got some data to support this as well on kind of why this channel is growing. And let's dig straight into this, right? So we're seeing this shift that's happening from this kind of subscription economy to the bundle economy, and this is driven by the subscribers that are now 2 in 3. 68% are now taking got an indirect subscription. So that is buying through a bundle or through a third party. That is huge. When you look at the kind of chart in the middle there, that 5.4 is the average number of subscriptions that we from the survey that we did in the US. 3.4 of those are direct to consumer subscriptions. So that is through the Netflix.com that Giles was explaining before. And 2 of those 5.4 are indirect bundles. Amazing. It's incredible to see that kind of growth. And this is really, this is the movement that we're seeing. This growth is coming from this indirect channel.
Yeah,
Omdia as well, isn't it, Giles?
Yeah, this data from Omdia popped up just a few weeks ago as well, which is very timely, where they're saying in the markets that they were referencing here that 30% of all SVOD is now coming through telco and non-telco bundling. So absolutely massive if you think about it. 30% of all subscriptions are now coming through those indirect channels. It's huge. So yeah, we're in our data. We ask people why are they signing up indirectly, and a lot of these speak to bundling. So if we look at just the top 3 boxes that were respondents here, so included free of charge with another service was the top response. This would be your typical bundle. This is you've signed up, I don't know, $50 to sign up to a new mobile service, and they've included something Prime on us. Within that package. So to the subscriber, they're getting it for free. 35%, it's easier to add to an existing bill than set up another service directly. So the ease of subscription and a better price than going direct in many cases. Could be a bundle, could be a perk or some kind of discount is being offered there. The 4th one's worth looking at as well. Fastest to subscribe. Wherever you make a purchase easier or faster, it's more likely to convert. And that refers back to the add to bill dynamic that we see as the second reason. So really interesting why this indirect channel is emerging. Ben, we got some data here on where Americans are getting their subscriptions from.
Yeah, so we wanted to look where these indirect subscriptions, which are the channels are the highest, channels for these indirect subscriptions. There's no surprises there that cell phone providers, so that's your mobile operators, your Verizon, AT&T, and so on in the US, are coming in at the top. But I thought it was really interesting to see that retailers coming in the second position, and this is something that Evan and Marion, they touched upon this in their podcast as well. This to me really is pointing at Amazon as a really emerging trend, and I know we've got some more data to show on that later as well, haven't we, Giles?
That's right. Yeah. So should we get into the picture from the subscriber point of view here?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so consumers are continuing to spend heavily on subscriptions. $900 is the average spend. A quarter of our audience are saying they're spending $100 or more on subscriptions. And this is explained partially by the behaviors that they're exhibiting as well. 49% are saying that subscriptions are now an essential part of their life. and 70% now have something called a forever subscription. That subscription which they will never pause and cancel. This is something we saw in our European study just before the end of last year, and we double-clicked on this and asked what those forever subscriptions were. No surprise, perhaps, but Netflix was by far out in front, followed by Prime and Disney Plus. So emergence of some interesting behaviors in the subscription economy. What are subscribers subscribing to? Well, SVOD, so subscription video on demand. That's Netflix, Disney, Prime that we've been talking about. Retail, which will include Amazon, of course, but also the emergence of some of the physical retail stores having their own subscription products. So Walmart Plus, for example, and within that they are also offering bundles, perhaps included or perhaps to buy. Retailers, know how to sell, so it's logical that they would be good at selling subscriptions too. Music, gaming, sports, SVOD. There's a big long list here. Perhaps it's worth calling out the emergence really of social media and AI a bit further down, and we're going to double click on that in a second, aren't we, Ben?
We are indeed, yeah. So we've done some additional cuts. So our survey is a large scale survey, 5,000 US subscribers, and in doing that, we've now got the luxury of being able to cut the data in different ways by looking into age groups and generational cuts and even interests, which we'll come on to, won't we, Giles?
Yeah, that's right. So what we've done here is chosen the two extreme age groups, the youngest and the oldest age groups. They're ranked as before. So what we should see is a nice linear relationship, with SVOD being the most popular, gradually falling down to education at the far right. But of course, we don't see that. What we see is a kind of Manhattan chart of some interesting over indexes here. So just looking at the 18 to 24, we can see that music is the most popular subscription taken. Some big over indexes though on gaming, social media, and probably interesting to many will be AI now. So 15% now paying for an AI subscription. If we contrast that to the 65 pluses, it's a much narrower set of subscriptions, SVOD, retail, music, and then a bit of news and home tech and sports VOD. So a much narrower set, and then virtually nothing else elsewhere. So not quite an inverse of the younger age group, but there's not much gaming, AI, or social media going on in that age group. And probably the point here is, when thinking about creating bundles and targeting certain groups within your demographic, however that is, behavioral, generational, or otherwise, look beyond the average. The average of the market isn't going to help you so much. You need to dig a little bit deeper, and we've got the data here that can support that. Yeah, let's have a look at. I'm still in this age group, but I will remain in this generation. So an important distinction there, perhaps, but. My generation seems to be a fairly prolific spender of subscriptions. No real over-index, except that all of them are slightly above average, more or less. We're spending more and we take more subs than the average. So fairly boring, perhaps, but there we go. That's my age group. We also are able to look at specific cuts based on what people are subscribing to. And this is data that isn't in the report. So you're seeing it here for the first time. So we start here with a little explainer. So the US average, you can see SVOD, retail, gaming, as we saw previously. We then have in the pink box the average number of subs, and then whether they're taken directly, 3.4, indirectly 2, and then their average spend. So we can see movie, which is the most populous or most taken subscription, music fans, slightly higher spend, gaming fans, way more subs and way more spend, sports fans, no surprise, also way above average and higher spend, partly because if you want to be a fan of a particular sport, of course we have sport fans, but probably more likely we have football fans, as in NFL football, who may need to take a multitude of services to follow their sport all the way through. And then this curious one with finance and budgeting app users, who seem to be spending way more and taking way more subs than anyone else. So that's a really interesting dynamic. And again, it shows you that don't trust the average, dig deeper into some of these areas. And we'll come back to this one a little bit later on because it is so fascinating.
So we wanted to kind of look at more on the kind of breadth of the different subscriptions that are existing right now. So Obviously, Amazon channels is a major distribution channel for subscriptions. So this is looking at, so I think the size of the audience here is around 3,337, I think is the number there on screen, of who have an Amazon subscription, which subscriptions they're buying through that channel. And 33% of them are saying that Paramount Plus is their, they're doing a lot of promotions about that on Yellowstone and those titles that are available on Paramount Plus. And then there's a whole array of other subscription items as well, which interesting to see Apple TV Plus there. I mean, that's a bizarre one, which you probably wouldn't have thought that would happen 2 years ago, that would be a kind of relationship. But that just shows the power of bundling, right? And then also there's some more data here as well from Ampere that Giles is going to talk about.
Yeah, I couldn't resist bringing this Ampere data in, because it helps us tell a story of an emerging trend where the bundlers and the bundlees and the roles that each are playing is kind of changing. One of the sort of trends within that is content providers being packaged together with each other and then sold as a single unit, as a single price point. Netmax is probably the biggest example. Netflix with Max sold together in one price point and bought as one package by the consumer. The other is the opportunity to sell each other. So we just talked for a while there about Amazon channels selling other types of content. Well, so is true, and so is possible for other content providers to sell each other. And this data from Ampere Analysis, what it's doing is saying what proportion of people who take service A also take service B. And the orange box is highlighting here where actually there's quite a low crossover for many of these services. So there is actually an opportunity to work together in one form or another to cross-sell, upsell. And we learn with this also that content providers do find that they are stickier when bundled with other services. So there's some big opportunities here.
And also niche services. So we talked a little bit about them before. There's some particular niche services that aren't actually that niche, but there is some services out there that are. And we wanted to understand the kind of the desire from subscribers on wanting these services included in bundles. And 58% agree that they would want these in their proposition. So interests are so wide spanning that we sometimes have to cater for these different demographics and making sure that these interests are served. Some examples here of some of the different types of niche services, like subscriptions for kids, some genre-based SVODs, some dieting, and so on. The interesting thing here, if we look at the percentages and then look at the kind of the full population in the US, we're talking quite sizable numbers here. These are not to be forgotten about whatsoever. So I thought that was a really interesting one to bring to the table here. But I think we need to get into now a bit more into the actual subscriber problem around frustration and fatigue. I'll let Giles handle this one.
Yeah, the growth of the subscription economy and the subscriptionization of everything has really led to a couple of negative consequences, one of which is subscription fatigue. People can't remember where and how they've signed up to certain services. Some don't know how much they're spending on their subscriptions. There's some really interesting data here. 29% are paying for subscriptions they never use, which rises to nearly half of 18 to 24-year-olds, which will be no surprise to any parents here. And 62% of us can't afford all the subscriptions that we would like. So we've caused a few problems here in the subscription economy. We've also unearthed through this survey the savvy subscriber. So what we're finding here is that 44% of subscribers are now getting something for free, which they previously paid for. So that's quite a nice consequence for subscribers. 14% have cancelled a service after their favorite show ended. So interesting behavior there. And 68% now shop around for the best deal. It wasn't long ago that there was one price and only one price. But now there's so much bundling going on that it is possible to shop around and find an improved situation for yourself. And then we have this data about pausing and restarting. Both sides are quite fascinating, I think. So 37% have told us that they are pausing and restarting, and 44% have said they haven't. So both are interesting bits of data there. But really what this is all pointing to is that subscribers want flexibility and control. So 63% have told us that they want one single platform to manage all their subscriptions, to pay for and administrate all their subscriptions in one place. And 62% have told us that they want to be able to pick and choose the subscriptions that they want rather than being pushed into a pre-packaged bundle. So an interesting paradox gets resolved here by this trend of super bundling, paying for and managing all your subscriptions in one place. So despite subscription fatigue, if we solve this problem and create these content hubs, 44% would sign up to more subscriptions, 47% would spend more time using, they'd be more loyal, they would actually switch from their current service provider if they found this provided elsewhere, and 62% would then recommend that provider to their friends. So Ben, who's doing this? Who do they want to offer this super bundling?
Yeah, so we kind of classify the top three as a telco. So that's your mobile operator, broadband provider, and TV and cable provider. And I think that what we're seeing as well is the other type of resellers are also ranking higher up as well now. So it's getting to a point where the competition is getting higher. There is an opportunity, and we're seeing a lot more conversations now with kind of the banking space, in the retail space, and we're seeing this emergence of people wanting to do super bundling. Right, it's a very interesting area for them, and I wanted to put this stat on this 54%. They're saying that they would if they had the option of having those subscriptions in one place, 54% of our audience said they would pay a higher bill and a premium to have that. So paying to have that service, to have that flexibility, and that control is really important here.
Really interesting. So let's have a look at a couple of the OGs here. So Optus SubHub. This is a service provided by Optus in Australia whereby you can view 20 or so different types of content across different categories, much like the categories we saw now, not just subscription video on demand. And the more services you take from Optus, the greater the discount you'll get. And in fact, they were running a promotion recently where new customers would sign up and actually get a credit towards those subscriptions as well. So really interesting stuff going on at Optus. And of course, Verizon, who have Plus Play, which is a content hub of 45 different types of content. They also do some perks and offers on arrival, and have done hard bundles as well. Sunday Ticket at one point. So these are really interesting examples of super bundling from around the world.
So yes, we wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the banking and financial space, and we know that banking have customer bases that are quite loyal, right? They stay with your kind of bank for a number of years. The data here from Bankrate, which was some data from January 2025, is averaging around between the 17 and 19 year mark. It's a long amount of time. I mean, anyone that would want a customer for that long would bite their hand off for it. And even the older generation is getting up to 27.4 years of lifetime at that bank. And we're seeing a lot of promotions as well from Chase. This is Chase in the US, offering quite a large sum of money for switching over to their account. So it's really interesting seeing that. And we've got some data here as well that we asked around this, didn't we, Giles?
Yeah, I mean, I fall into this kind of thing. I was offered £250 to switch my bank account, which I gladly did. Some extraordinary kind of inertia or stickiness in the checking account area there, which makes this next data absolutely fascinating. 29% said that they would leave their current provider if they were offered better subscription bundling elsewhere. But it's extraordinary when you look at the tenures of these customers. And of course, we're reminded back to the relevant subscriber behavior, where we saw the finance and budgeting app users were the most prolific in both the average number of subs they were taking and the average spend. So really fascinating opportunity to use bundling for banks and the financial sector.
So you asked actually fairly recently on a podcast, weren't you, Giles, around when you had a bit of a bundle bust up or whatever it was called.
Bundle brawl.
That's it, bundle brawl. That's the one. Who are the ones losing out here? Because there's obviously three different parties involved in a bundle. Who's in the losing position?
Yeah, that was sort of the question posed, and really there are no losers in this. There are typically three parties involved. So there's somebody doing the reselling, there's a content provider who has the subscription service that they're bringing to the table, and of course the subscriber. So we've done a various surveys throughout the year. You can find them all on bango.com/resources over the last few years. One of which was asking 115 telco execs in a survey we called the Final Frontier. And they were saying that they're getting into super bundling because they're looking for new revenue streams from super bundling. They can drive customer retention, reducing churn, improving net promoter score, and they're looking to acquire new customers using super bundling. On the content provider side, really, this is about reach and acquisition. You can read about this in a survey that we did, again, same place, bango.com/resources. We did this with Questex, who run Stream TV. And the outcome was reach and acquisition, also reducing churn and improving stickiness of their product, which we know can happen when multiple products are bought together or bundled together, and improving cost per acquisition, and of course leveraging the simplified payments that come with working with telcos. Ben, tell us about the subscriber win.
Yeah, so for the subscriber, we've talked about quite a lot of this, a lot of the data points throughout the presentation and in the report. Again, the QR code is right above my head. If you want to manage all your kind of subscriptions in one place, this is a huge benefit, right? The convenience, control, and the flexibility. This will solve that subscription fatigue issue and overcome that area. We've got some data, I think it's 62% of the audience that we surveyed said that they'd actually better manage their household expenditure by having that ability to bring it all into one place. So a real big benefit there for the subscriber. And, that's the whole paradox that we talked about the last point. So this, having that ability to have them all in one place, actually you'd end up spending more time on the service because you take away that administration headache, and you even sign up to more services because you've got the ability to discover and find more subscription content that might be desirable for you. So really interesting win for the subscriber as well. So let's quickly summarize, Giles, on kind of what we've covered today. The subscription economy is booming, as we said, $1 trillion by 2028. With some Juniper data.
Yeah, the bundle economy is growing, with 2 in 3 subscribers now having at least one indirect subscription, and of an average of 5.4 subscriptions, 2 of them are being bought through indirect channels.
So subscription fatigue is still a major challenge and a headache.
Yeah, and subscribers are looking for flexibility and control, one platform to pay for and manage all their subs.
Which is the trend, super bundling, bringing them all into one place.
Which is a win-win-win for the resellers, the content providers, and the subscribers.
I feel like we should have sang that last bit. But yeah, it sounded really good. Thanks, Giles, for joining. We've got now an opportunity to ask some questions from the audience. So feel free to put them into the chat. I've got one here for you to kind of spark us off. This is from Kristen. Which category do dating apps fall into? Is it social media?
That's a great question. I think we actually have a separate dating app segment. If I can't find the note quickly, I will come back to you.
That's fine. It's okay.
Dating subscriptions. Yes, 5% of our subscribers have taken a dating subscription, which is 265 out of 5,000. So they're in there.
They're definitely in there. There you go, Kristen.
And by the way, when we ask these questions, we do give these examples, so to sort of minimize the confusion. So the research method is through a panel, 5,000 people. They get the question, and whenever we feel it's necessary, they get little examples of what we intend by each category, for example.
Thank you for that. Some comments here around the early millennials are boring in terms of their subscription habits, which I think is a very interesting comment there from Kai. Jeffrey Gilbert said, is bundling causing subscribers to spend less or just get more from their money overall?
That's a great question, and that's one that came up the other day in our bundle brawl. I think there's the data shows us that savvy subscribers are finding ways. What was it? 44% now have a subscription that they get for free, which previously they used to pay for. But there's also the behavior that we've seen where by making it easier, by giving the flexibility and control, subscribers are then able or feel inclined to spend more. So I think it's a mixture of both. I think there's better value in there sometimes if you're a savvy subscriber. Quite often I hear anecdotal stories of people who have realized that they've been paying for a sub that they could have got or are eligible to have through perhaps their mobile operator. So I think if you've got your wits about you, there's more opportunities now than there ever used to be. In the direct-to-consumer days, or solely direct-to-consumer days, there was one price point and that was it. Now you can get lucky or get savvy.
Absolutely. Another question just come in as well. Thank you for these questions. Keep them coming. How are more niche content providers finding their way into super bundles or more thematic bundles? What's the process and who are the stakeholders involved?
That's a great question. So typically the decision makers about who gets bundled is the one doing the selling or the reselling. So whoever owns that content hub or that reselling location is the one who is. So let's say, for example, it's a telco that's doing it, a mobile operator. They're the ones who are determining who is being sold or who's being offered in a bundle. And I think it's the role of the content provider, or sometimes Bango is involved here, in presenting the case as to why a particular type of content is going to be useful in a bundling situation. And I think what we're starting to see is more and more sophisticated segmentation going on. And when that happens, I think the role of the specialist, let's say, provider becomes more prominent. So it could be that a specialist provider completes a three-way or a four-way bundle that can be presented to customers, or it could be the case that they provide an alternative if for whatever reason that content hub owner is locked out of offering what might be a substitute product. So the short answer is it's whoever's doing the bundling, which is typically the telco, bank, retailer.
Hope that answered your question. We've got a question here from Jeff Luther saying, subscribers say they want subscriptions all in one place, but are ISPs concerned about sticker shock? Once the realization and what they are spending sets in, would the concern turn into subscription cancellations?
That's a great question. And actually, this is something that's debated quite a lot at some moment during the creation of a content hub. Should we provide one bill which includes everything? So at the end of the month, here's your £100 bill or $100 bill, and you took all of these services? Or should we somehow itemize them and separate them, which is the more typical path, to say, this is your bill for your connectivity, this great price that we promised you and you still have, and here's the price for the services that you're taking on top. And that tends to mitigate somewhat sticker shock. It can even be provided in two different bills. You could literally send two different emails. You could even send, the service bills. If you took Netflix on day one and Prime on day 7 and I don't know, Xbox Game Pass on day 20, you could even send those bills on different day to reduce that sticker shock.
Thank you for that, Giles. A question here around how does subscription bundling vary between the US and other countries and regions?
That's a great question. Thank you for all these questions. So we've now done this survey or a survey like it in 24 countries. So broadly speaking, that means the US, Latin America, 5 countries, Europe, 5 countries, the Far East and Southeast Asia. And the behaviors that we're seeing, the subscription fatigue, the desire for consolidation into a single content hub is the same. Almost exactly the same, some slight increases here and there. The types of content that are taking can vary from country to country. Off the top of my head, Taiwan had an absolutely prolific amount of demand for gaming. So the mix can change ever so slightly, but the broad picture is the same: subscription fatigue, demand for super bundling.
Yeah, I remember there's some nuances as well around certain types of subscriptions that were over-indexing than others were interesting. So, but if you want to get hold of any of those reports, they're all available on bango.com/resources. Another question here. Great session, guys. Do you think telcos will mostly make offers/bundles tactically, or will more will become serious in becoming super aggregators and properly driving traffic, investing, marketing to the bundling space, kind of like Verizon are doing?
Yeah, I think bundling can be used for many different tactical ends, as you say, strategic ends too. So where we see bundling used for customer acquisition, it's typically a hard bundle, and it's making a sales promotion effectively. You know, here's our price, and within that, you get all this stuff. Isn't that brilliant? And isn't it better than the alternatives? So that's a kind of tactical play with the hard bundle. And then we see the more content hub, the super bundling with multiple different types of content there as a kind of retention and churn reduction objective that's being met with that. Those content hubs, well, all of them, there's rationale as to why you would advertise and promote heavily for those. The customer acquisition play with the hard bundle, you would promote heavily because you're in a drive to acquire new customers. So that makes logical sense. No point in doing a deep promotion if you're not going to tell anyone about it. And then the content hubs, I think honestly, my feeling is yes, the let's say above the line advertising and promotion is important, but actually the flows as to how you take your existing customer base or those who you're acquiring anyway through those content hubs and drive the usage and activation of those subscriptions that you've chosen is probably an effective driver of subscription bundling as well. So I think it's a mixture of different areas of the marketing mix, which is going to drive success for the content hubs. And yes, absolutely, I think telcos are taking it seriously. There's a drive for differentiation, of premiumization, acquiring new customers, driving stickiness. All of these different things for various different reasons can be achieved through bundling.
I think a final question, because I know I'm looking at the time and thinking we've put half an hour, we've got all these questions, so we better address them. And that's the beauty of live streaming, right? How can banks use subscription bundling to keep customers loyal and attract new ones? Great question. Thank you for that.
That's a great question. Well, I think we've seen, so Revolut Ultra and other banks are using a bit like with the hard bundles at banks. It's somewhat to do with the acquisition play, but also the more subscription services you take, not just be offered, but actually take and use, the stickier you become. We've seen that with broadband providers. We have data there, and telcos. The more services you take, the higher the net promoter score. No reason to think that won't be the case also with banks. The more services you take, the stickier and more loyal you become. So I think, well, I don't have the data today on that for banking and finance. It feels logical that that would also be the case.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll bring this to a close. Giles, thank you very much for being a special guest today. I hope the audience have enjoyed the data. Again, accessing the report via this side, accessing the report with the QR code. Feel free to connect with Giles and myself on LinkedIn. And yeah, we'll see you for next month's edition at the end of April. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on, Ben. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.